The worst sound a father can hear isn't his child's scream. It's the silence that comes after, when you realize you're too far away to help, too powerless to protect, and too late to matter. Marcus Ashford heard that silence tonight. He sits in a rusted pickup truck across from his own $30 million mansion, hands gripping the steering wheel until his knuckles turn white, listening to nothing. His daughter Lily screamed 3 minutes ago. He knows because he's been counting every second since. Now there's only the mocking quiet of February wind and distant traffic and a restraining order that says he must stay 500 feet away from the only two people on Earth he'd die for. At 45, Marcus owns 17 luxury cars he'll never drive again. He employs 12,000 people who'll never see him cry. He built an automotive empire that spans 3 continents. But tonight, he's wearing oil-stained coveralls that smell like another man's sweat, sitting in a truck held together by rust and prayer, watching shadows move behind his own curtains. The judge said he was too unstable, too grief-stricken, too dangerous. 6 weeks ago, the court decided a billionaire father was less fit than the woman who's slowly erasing his children from existence. The mechanic's coveralls itch. The beard he's grown to hide his face scratches against his collar. His hands, once soft from boardroom handshakes and $50 manicures, are cracked open and stained black from work he never knew existed before he became someone else. Mike Torres, divorced mechanic, $12 an hour, studio apartment above a Vietnamese restaurant. Close enough to glimpse his children through windows, far enough to call it legal. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Have you ever been close enough to touch something precious but forbidden to reach? Subscribe now, because what happens next will break you before it saves anyone. Marcus took the job at Torres Auto Repair 3 blocks from his estate for one reason. The second-floor window overlooks the route Victoria's Mercedes takes twice daily. His fiancée, the woman who promised to love James and Lily as her own. The woman who smiled in family court while her lawyer presented text messages of Marcus canceling visits for business trips. Testimony from nannies Marcus barely knew existed, and a psychologist's report suggesting his unprocessed grief made him volatile. She had everything except the truth. She never wanted his children, only their money. Through the shop window this morning, Marcus watched Victoria's car glide through gates that used to be his. Lily's face was pressed against the rear window, 4 years old with tangled blonde curls and eyes that don't shine anymore. She used to laugh at everything, butterflies, bubbles, the way her father's tie was always crooked. Now she stares at nothing with the hollow expression of children who've learned that screaming doesn't bring help. James wasn't visible in the back seat. Marcus told himself the 5-year-old was slouched low, maybe sleeping. He tells himself a lot of lies these days. They hurt less than the truth. His late wife died 3 years ago. Cancer took 8 months to kill her, but Marcus killed their family long before that. He was in Singapore when Lily took her first steps. Dubai when James said his first word. London when the doctor called with test results that started with "I'm sorry" and ended with stage 4. He built an empire by conquering every market except the one that mattered: home. After the funeral, grief swallowed him whole. But instead of turning toward his children, 2 babies who'd just lost their mother, Marcus buried himself deeper in work. Merger meetings, expansion deals, 18-hour days that let him avoid 2 empty beds and unanswered questions like, "When is mommy coming back?" He told himself he was providing, securing their future, building their inheritance. The truth was simpler and more shameful. He didn't know how to be their father, so he paid other people to try. Victoria Chase walked into his life 14 months ago at a charity gala. 34. Beautiful, elegant, Childless by choice, she said, but willing to reconsider for the right man. She said every perfect thing, played every perfect part. 6 months ago, she moved into his estate. 4 months ago, he proposed. 8 weeks ago, she filed emergency custody papers with allegations that made him sound like a monster. Neglect, emotional instability, erratic behavior, potential danger to the children. The court believed her. Why wouldn't they? Marcus had spent years proving she was right. He'd chosen conference calls over bedtime stories, chosen profit margins over parent-teacher meetings, chosen everything except them. Temporary custody granted, restraining order issued, his own money, his own lawyers, his own choices, all weaponized against him by a woman who saw 2 traumatized children and calculated their net worth. Marcus's attorneys told him to be patient. Appeals take time. The system moves slowly. Prove you're stable. Prove you're present. Prove you're not the man she says you are. So he became Mike Torres instead. Nobody at Torres Auto Repair knows the grease-stained mechanic is actually their employer. Nobody knows he owns the building, the business, the entire block. Raymond, 63, weathered hands, kind eyes, shares his lunch with younger guys who forget theirs. He has almost nothing but gives freely. Carlos brings extra coffee on Mondays for everyone, drives a car older than Marcus's disguise, lives paycheck to paycheck but shows up smiling. These men have so little, but during lunch breaks in the cramped break room, Marcus sees what he lost. They're present. They exist in the lives that matter to them. They know their children's teachers' names. They coach Little League. They're there. Yesterday, Carlos mentioned the billionaire who owns their company. My cousin works corporate. Says Ashford's never around anymore. Built an empire, couldn't build a family. Man's a ghost. The words cut deeper than any court ruling. True things usually do. Tonight, Marcus sits in darkness watching Grace Williams carry groceries toward the service entrance. Victoria's newest maid, 28, African-American, quiet. He's noticed her 3 times this week. She always looks tired. She always looks sad. And she always stares at the children's windows the same way he does, like she's witnessing something wrong and doesn't know how to stop it. The wind picks up. Marcus's worn baseball cap, nothing like the custom Italian hats collecting dust in a closet he can't access, lifts off his head and tumbles into the street. He curses, climbs out, chases it down. When he bends to grab it, he sees Grace standing 10 feet away, frozen. Her grocery bags dangle from trembling hands. Her eyes go wide. Her mouth opens slightly. Recognition hits her face like lightning. Marcus's stomach drops. He's been so careful. The beard, the 20 pounds he's lost, the coveralls and the persona and the truck. But Grace has been inside his home. She's cleaned his office. She's seen the photographs Victoria ordered removed. Wedding pictures, family portraits, images of Marcus holding his newborn children with an expression that suggested he actually loved them. She knows exactly who he is. They stare at each other across the darkening street. Headlights sweep past. Somewhere a dog barks. Marcus can hear his own heartbeat, panicked and loud. If Victoria discovers he's been watching the house, her lawyers will call it stalking, obsession, violation, more evidence he's dangerous. Grace's hands shake. One grocery bag tears, apples tumble and roll across pavement. She doesn't move to pick them up. She just stares at Marcus with an expression he can't decode. Fear, maybe, or pity, or recognition of something deeper than identity. Then she glances back at the mansion, at the lit windows where his children are. When she looks at Marcus again, her eyes fill with tears. She walks toward him, slowly, like approaching something fragile that might shatter or flee. Marcus wants to run, wants to protect his secret, his pathetic plan. the last thread connecting him to James and Lily. But he doesn't move, because Grace's face tells him something unexpected. She's not going to expose him. She's going to help him. She stops 3 feet from his truck. Her voice comes out barely above a whisper, so quiet Marcus has to lean forward to hear. The words she speaks shatter what remains of his carefully controlled world. Mr. Ashford, I know who you are, and I know what she's planning to do to your children. Comment where you're watching from, and if you've ever trusted a stranger with everything you had left to lose, subscribe so you don't miss the next part of the story. What Grace knows will change everything, and you're not ready for it. Grace Williams doesn't invite Marcus inside the mansion. She's smarter than that. Instead, she gestures toward the small park 2 blocks east, the one with broken swings and graffiti-scarred benches where nobody goes after dark. They arrive separately. Marcus parks his truck behind a dumpster. Grace walks, grocery bags abandoned on the street where apples still roll into gutters. When she sits on the bench beside him, she doesn't look at his face. She stares at her hands instead, calloused, cracked, the hands of a woman who scrubs other people's floors for survival. Marcus notices she's trembling, not from cold, from fear. You need to understand something first, Grace whispers. I'm undocumented. My visa expired 16 months ago. If Victoria finds out I spoke to you, 1 phone call ends my life here. 1 call, and I'm deported back to nothing. Marcus starts to speak. Grace cuts him off. I'm telling you anyway, because some things matter more than safety. She pulls a folded paper from her jacket pocket, hands it to Marcus. He unfolds it under the dim street light. It's a printout of an email. Victoria's name at the top. The subject line reads, Boarding School Inquiry, Year-Round Placement. Marcus's hands start shaking. He reads the body text. Swiss institution. Children ages 4 to 12. No holiday visits required. Full legal guardianship transfer recommended for optimal placement. She's been researching for 3 weeks, Grace says quietly. That's just 1 email. There are dozens. Like and subscribe now. You need to see where this leads. Why? Marcus's voice cracks. Why would she send them away? Grace finally looks at him. Her eyes are wet. Because she never wanted children, Mr. Ashford. She wanted what they represent. The trust fund you set up in their names, the inheritance they control. Once the adoption finalizes and she has legal guardianship, the children become inconvenient. The word hangs in the cold air between them. Inconvenient. Like his son and daughter are obstacles instead of human beings. Marcus feels bile rising in his throat. There's more. Grace's voice drops even lower. I found prescription bottles in her bathroom. High-dose sedatives. She told me they're for her migraines, but I looked up the dosages. Mr. Ashford, those amounts would put an adult to sleep for hours. For a child, she doesn't finish. She doesn't need to. Marcus thinks of Lily's hollow eyes in the car window. James's absence from view. The screams that end in silence. His chest tightens until breathing hurts. How long? He manages. She started giving them something 2 weeks ago. I don't know what. But James falls asleep at the dinner table now. Lily can barely stay awake during the day. When I asked Victoria about it, she said they've been having adjustment issues and the pediatrician prescribed something to help them sleep. What pediatrician? That's the thing. Grace pulls out her phone, shows Marcus a photograph she took of a prescription bottle. I called the pharmacy. Asked if I could confirm the prescribing doctor for insurance purposes. They said no doctor by that name practices in this state. Marcus stares at the photo. The label is clear. The doctor's name is Fiction, which means Victoria is medicating his children without medical oversight. drugging them into compliant silence. His hands curl into fists. Rage floods through him. Hot, violent, overwhelming. He wants to drive to the mansion right now, break down the door, take his children and disappear to somewhere Victoria's lawyers can't reach. Grace seems to read his thoughts. You can't. If you violate that restraining order, you lose them forever. The judge will call you dangerous, unstable, exactly what Victoria claimed. You'll go to jail and she'll have complete control. Then what? Marcus's voice is raw. I just let her drug them? Let her ship them to Switzerland? Let her make them disappear? No. Grace's voice hardens with something Marcus didn't expect. Steel. We document everything. We gather evidence. We do this right. She pulls out her phone again. Shows him photographs. Victoria's computer screen displaying boarding school websites. More prescription bottles. A notepad where Victoria has calculated numbers. Trust fund values. Liquidation timelines, transfer dates. I've been documenting for 5 days, Grace says. Since I realized what was happening, I photograph everything I can when she's out. I record conversations when it's legal. I keep copies off-site where she can't find them. Marcus looks at this woman, this stranger who has nothing, risks everything, documents evil in the house where she works, and feels something break inside him. Not despair, gratitude, raw, overwhelming gratitude. Why are you doing this? Grace is silent for a long moment. When she speaks, her voice carries a weight Marcus recognizes. Grief. My father died when I was 10. Heart attack at 49. He worked 3 jobs trying to provide for us. Mechanic during the day, security guard at night. Construction on weekends. He wanted to give us everything. Instead, he gave us nothing but his absence, and then his funeral. She wipes her eyes with the back of her hand. He was a good man who made the mistake of thinking money mattered more than time. You're making a different mistake, Mr. Ashford. You have time now. You're here. You're trying. Your children are losing you while you're still breathing, and I can't. Her voice breaks. I can't watch that happen again, not when I can stop it. Marcus can't speak, can't move. This woman who has every reason to protect herself is sacrificing everything for 2 children she barely knows because her own father worked himself to death trying to provide. Subscribe now. What happens next will change everything for these children. What do we need? Marcus finally asks. 72 hours. Maybe less. Your private investigator, I assume you have one, needs to verify everything I've documented. Your lawyer needs to file emergency custody with all this evidence. We need medical records showing those drugs aren't prescribed. We need proof of her previous relationships with wealthy widowers. I can do that. There's a problem. Grace's face darkens. Victoria just booked flights. Not to Switzerland. Not yet. To New York. Day after tomorrow. She told the household staff it's a short trip, visiting friends. But I saw the booking confirmation on her computer. One-way tickets, private jet, and she applied for expedited passports for the children last week. Marcus's blood turns cold. She's running. She knows the court date is coming. She knows your appeal might succeed. She's not waiting around for that. She's disappearing with them, and once she's gone, you'll never find them. The math is brutal and simple. Marcus has 48 hours before Victoria takes his children beyond his reach forever. We can't delay her, Grace says. She's suspicious already. This morning she asked why I've been so interested in the children's schedules. I told her I was just trying to help, but she's watching me now. If I do anything unusual, she'll know. Then we move faster. Marcus pulls out his phone. I'll call my investigator tonight. My lawyer first thing tomorrow. We file for emergency custody. Present all your evidence. Get a hearing before she boards that plane. What if the judge won't see you in time? Then I stop her anyway. Grace grabs his arm. Her grip is surprisingly strong. No. If you violate that order, you lose everything. She wins. The children disappear into state custody or worse. You have to trust the system. The system gave her custody in the first place because you gave her ammunition, years of ammunition. Now, we're giving you truth. Trust that truth is stronger. Marcus wants to believe her. Wants to believe that evidence and lawyers and proper procedure will save his children before Victoria's jet takes off. But he spent 6 weeks learning that the system moves slowly while evil moves fast. I need you to promise me something, Grace says. Her voice is urgent now. If this goes wrong, if she gets on that plane, you don't go after her alone. You don't play hero. You let the authorities handle it, because if you get arrested, those children have nobody. Marcus doesn't promise. Can't promise. Because they both know the truth. If Victoria takes his children tomorrow, no authority will move fast enough, and Marcus will do whatever it takes, even if it costs him everything. Grace sees the answer in his face. She nods slowly, understanding. Then she hands him a piece of paper with a phone number written in careful script. That's my cell. Victoria doesn't know I have it. If something changes, if she moves the timeline up, if anything happens, I'll call you immediately. She stands to leave. Marcus grabs her hand. Thank you for risking everything, for caring when you don't have to, for being the kind of person I should have been years ago. Grace's eyes fill with tears. Save them, Mr. Ashford. That's all the thanks I need. Just save them. She walks away into darkness. Marcus sits alone on the broken bench, holding evidence that might save his children or might arrive too late to matter. He pulls out his phone and makes the first call. His private investigator answers on the second ring. Marcus, I need everything, fast. I'll explain on the way. He starts his truck and drives toward the investigator's office, mind racing through scenarios and timelines and desperate possibilities. Tomorrow he'll call his lawyer. Tomorrow he'll file papers and present evidence and trust that truth is stronger than lies. Tonight, he allows himself one moment of brutal honesty. If the system fails, he's already decided what comes next. The jet won't take off, whatever it takes. His phone buzzes. Text from an unknown number. He opens it. It's a photograph. His children, sitting at a dinner table, food untouched, heads drooping, eyes half closed. The medication making them compliant, making them disappear while still breathing. Below the photo, a message. Stop interfering, mechanic. I know exactly who you are. Walk away or the maid pays first. Like and subscribe. The war for these children just turned deadly. Marcus doesn't sleep. Sleep is a luxury for people who aren't watching their children disappear in real time. He sits at the private investigator's cramped office at 3 in the morning, surrounded by manila folders and bitter coffee, while Thomas Rivera clicks through databases and court records. Found something? Thomas says. His voice carries no triumph, only grim confirmation. Victoria Chase, she exists. Clean record, perfect credit, model citizen. That's not helpful. Wait. Thomas pulls up another screen. Her employment history is interesting. Over the past 8 years, she's worked as a private nurse, estate manager, and personal assistant, always for wealthy families, always families with young children, always families where the mother was recently deceased. Marcus leans forward, scanning the screen. 5 different families, 5 different cities, each position lasting between 4 and 10 months before she moved on. Why would she keep changing jobs? Thomas clicks deeper. Here's where it gets strange. I contacted 3 of the families. 2 wouldn't speak to me. The third, a widower in Connecticut, finally talked after I explained the situation. His daughter is 9 now. 5 years ago, Victoria worked as their private nurse after his wife died in a car accident. What happened? She bonded with the child, became essential to the household, started discussing adoption with him. Then his daughter developed mysterious health problems, lethargy, confusion, missed school for weeks. Doctors couldn't figure it out. Then one day, Victoria quit without notice. The daughter's symptoms vanished within 48 hours. Marcus feels ice forming in his stomach. He never reported it. He suspected something but couldn't prove it. Victoria was gone. His daughter recovered. He chose to move on rather than pursue an investigation that might traumatize his child further. Like and subscribe. The pattern runs deeper than anyone knew. Thomas pulls up more files. The other families follow similar trajectories. Victoria enters their lives during grief, becomes indispensable, grows close to the children. Then something goes wrong. Financial disputes, custody concerns, family members raising questions, and she leaves abruptly. In every case, the children showed signs of excessive sedation during her tenure. She's been doing this for years, Marcus says quietly. Targeting vulnerable families, getting close to the children, and when it doesn't work out, she just moves on to the next one. Except this time is different, Thomas says. This time she didn't just get close. She got a ring, legal custody, a court order keeping you away. She's not planning to walk away from this one. She's planning to finish it. Marcus stares at the evidence scattered across Thomas's desk. Years of warning signs nobody connected. Families who suspected but stayed silent. Children who suffered but recovered and were told to forget. Can we use this in court? Your lawyer will need to move fast. I'm documenting everything. Employment records, medical files from the Connecticut case, testimony from the father who talked. But Marcus, we're building a pattern of behavior argument without criminal charges. No arrests, no restraining orders, just suspicious circumstances across multiple families. It's not enough. Combined with Grace's documentation and the fake prescription, it might be. Thomas checks his watch. But Victoria's flight leaves in 14 hours. Even if we file first thing this morning, even if a judge agrees to hear us. Marcus's phone buzzes. Text from Grace. Victoria moving everything up. She just told the car service to come at 2 p.m. instead of 6. We're out of time. 4 hours. They have 4 hours before Victoria takes his children beyond reach. Marcus forwards the message to his lawyer, Kent Morrison, who calls immediately. I saw Thomas's preliminary findings, Kent says without preamble. The pattern is compelling. But here's our problem. Victoria has legal custody. She has every right to travel with those children. Unless we can prove immediate danger, they're being drugged. With medication that appears prescribed. We know the doctor doesn't exist, but proving that requires pharmacy verification, medical board confirmation, expert testimony, all of which takes time we don't have. Subscribe now. What happens next will determine everything. Marcus grips the phone tighter. What if we stop her at the airport? Not me, Grace. She's the nanny. She can alert security, request a welfare check. Kent is quiet for several seconds. That could work. If the children are visibly impaired, airport security has grounds to intervene. But Marcus, this is thin ice. If Victoria can explain away their condition, motion sickness medication, anxiety about flying, legitimate prescription, security will let them through, and Grace will face consequences for interfering. She's willing to take that risk. Are you? Because if this fails, you're out of options. Victoria gets on that plane, and by the time we get a court order, they could be anywhere in the world. Marcus knows. He's betting everything on 4 hours, a scared maid, and airport security taking a drugged child seriously. He calls Grace. She answers on the first ring, voice tight. "Mr. Ashford, something's wrong. Victoria fired 2 staff members this morning. She's clearing the house. She knows someone's been paying attention. I need you to meet her at the airport. When she goes through security with the children, you alert TSA. Tell them the children are exhibiting signs of inappropriate sedation. Show them the fake prescription if you still have photos. And when she shows her custody papers, you tell them you have reason to believe the children are in immediate danger. You request a welfare check. You delay that flight long enough for us to get an emergency hearing." Grace doesn't respond immediately. Marcus can hear her breathing, weighing the decision that will either save his children or destroy her life. "If I do this," she finally says, "and it doesn't work, if they let her through anyway, I'll be arrested for interference, deported within days. I know. I can't ask you to." "You're not asking. I'm deciding." Her voice strengthens. "Those babies are being poisoned by someone who's supposed to protect them. Someone has to stand up. It might as well be me." She hangs up. Marcus sits in the pre-dawn darkness, holding a phone that connects him to a woman braver than he's ever been. His phone rings again. Kent. "I called in every favor I have. Judge Patricia Hendricks agreed to an emergency hearing at 11 a.m. That's before Morrison's usual docket, and she had to pull strings to make it happen. You need to be at the courthouse in 2 hours. And Marcus, come dressed like the man you actually are, not the mechanic, the father fighting for his children." Marcus looks down at his coveralls, stained with oil and desperation. The costume that let him stay close, but changed nothing. He drives to his real home, the penthouse he abandoned 6 weeks ago, and faces the man in the mirror. The beard comes off. The expensive suits emerge from the closet, still crisp, still carrying the scent of a life he walked away from. He showers away the grime of pretending to be someone else. Dresses in the armor of wealth and authority he thought didn't matter. In the mirror, Marcus Ashford looks back. Not broken, not disguised. A father with 90 minutes to convince a judge that his children's lives hang in the balance. His phone buzzes. Grace. At airport, Victoria arrived 30 minutes early. She's rushing them through security right now. James can barely stand. Lily's eyes won't focus. "I'm going in." Then another text. Different number. Victoria. "I know what you're planning, Marcus. I know about the hearing. I know about Grace, but we're boarding in 20 minutes. Your lawyers can file all the papers they want. By the time any judge signs anything, we'll be 30,000 feet up. Game over." Like and subscribe. The battle for 2 lives comes down to minutes. Marcus runs for his car, knowing he can't get to the airport without violating the restraining order, knowing he can't stay away while his children disappear, knowing that everything depends on a woman he met 3 days ago, standing between evil and 2 drugged babies at a security checkpoint. His phone rings. Grace. He answers. "Mr. Ashford." Her voice cracks. Background noise of crowds and announcements. Security won't stop them. Victoria showed her custody papers. They said the children just looked tired. She's heading to the gate now. Marcus's world narrows to a single point of white-hot clarity. The system failed. The evidence wasn't enough. His children are walking toward a plane that will take them somewhere he'll never find them. "Grace, get out of there. Don't let her see you. I'm on my way." "You can't come here. The restraining order doesn't matter anymore." He hangs up, floors the accelerator, makes a choice that will either save his children or destroy his last chance at custody. Either way, that plane doesn't take off. Grace Williams has been invisible her entire life. invisible to the wealthy families she cleans for, invisible to immigration authorities who process her expired paperwork, invisible to everyone except the children she protects when nobody else is looking. Today, she chooses to be seen. And it might cost her everything. She stands 30 feet from Gate 17 at the private terminal, watching Victoria Chase guide two stumbling children through the exclusive boarding area. The gate agent checks documents with the practiced efficiency of someone who doesn't ask questions when wealthy passengers arrive. Lily's blonde head lolls against Victoria's side, neck unable to support the weight. James walks like his legs belong to someone else, unsteady, unfocused, feet dragging across polished floors. A businessman glances at them, frowns, then returns to his phone. A couple with matching luggage whispers to each other, but keeps walking. Nobody wants to get involved. Nobody wants to be the person who causes a scene. Grace's hands shake as she pulls out her phone. The weight of this decision presses down on her like physical force. One call ends her life as she knows it. One call might save two children. One call transforms her from invisible to impossible to ignore. She dials 911. The operator answers with crisp professionalism. "What's your emergency?" "I'm at the private terminal, Gate 17. There's a woman about to board a flight with two young children who appear heavily sedated. I believe they're in immediate danger." "Ma'am, what's your relationship to these children?" The question hangs in the air. Grace knows what happens if she tells the truth. Fired this morning, no legal standing, undocumented immigrant interfering with legal custody. The call ends before it begins. She makes a choice between honesty and salvation. "I'm their nanny. The woman traveling with them has been giving them medication without a valid prescription. The children can barely walk. The boy just stumbled. They need help." "Does this woman have legal custody of the children?" Grace closes her eyes. "I don't know all the legal details, but I know something's very wrong. Please, send someone. Just look at them." She hangs up before the operator can probe deeper, before she has to admit she was fired, before the truth makes help impossible. Across the terminal, Victoria scans her boarding pass at the gate. The agent smiles. That professional courtesy reserved for first-class passengers and private jets. Waves them through. Victoria lifts Lily higher on her hip and takes James's hand, pulling him toward the jetway. Grace watches her chance disappear down the boarding tunnel. Watches two drugged children walking toward a plane that will take them somewhere their father will never find them. Watches evil win because she was too afraid to do more than make a phone call nobody will answer in time. Something inside her breaks, not despair, determination. She runs, like and subscribe, one woman's courage against the world. "Stop!" Her voice cuts through the ambient noise of the private terminal. Heads turn. Business travelers pause mid-stride. The gate agent looks up from her computer. Victoria freezes halfway down the jetway, recognition and fury flashing across her perfectly composed face. "Those children need medical attention. Look at them. They can barely stand." The gate agent steps forward, professional smile replaced by professional concern. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to step back from the boarding area." "I'm their nanny. I've been documenting what she's been giving them for weeks. Look at the little boy. Look at his eyes. Look at how the girl's head keeps dropping. That's not exhaustion. That's sedation. That's overdose." Victoria's voice comes out sharp and controlled, but Grace hears the edge of panic underneath. "This woman is mentally unstable. She was fired this morning for increasingly erratic behavior and inappropriate attachment to the children. I have full legal custody. Show her the papers." Victoria produces a leather folder from her designer bag, crisp official documents bearing court seals and judicial signatures, custody orders, restraining orders against Marcus, travel permissions, everything legitimate and legal and stamped with the authority of the state. The gate agent examines them carefully, then looks at Grace with apologetic eyes that say, "This is out of my hands." "Ma'am, these documents appear to be in order. I'm going to have to ask you to leave the gate area or I'll be forced to call security." "Then call them," Grace says. Her voice doesn't shake anymore. Fear has burned away, leaving only certainty. "Call TSA. Call airport police. Call anyone who can look at those children and tell me they're safe to fly. Because if that plane takes off and something happens to them at 30,000 feet, everyone who let it happen will have blood on their hands." The words hang in the air like an accusation. Other passengers stop pretending not to watch. Phones come out. Recording lights blink red. Someone mutters about posting this to social media. Victoria's composure cracks further. She tries to move the children down the jetway faster, away from the growing crowd and the recording phones. But James's legs give out. The 5-year-old crumples to the industrial carpet like a puppet with cut strings. Everything stops. The gate agent gasps. A woman in the crowd screams. Victoria tries to pull James to his feet, but his head lolls backward, eyes rolling, consciousness slipping. Airport security arrives. 2 officers in dark uniforms pushing through the gathering crowd. One of them kneels beside James, while the other positions himself between Victoria and the jetway exit. "Ma'am, how long has this child been in this condition?" The officer's voice carries authority and concern in equal measure. "He's tired. We've had a very long morning. He didn't sleep well last night." "He's perfectly fine." Victoria's words come faster now, defensive. "I'm his legal guardian. I have custody. You can't—" "Ma'am, this child is not fine." The officer stands, keys his radio. "Need medical response to gate 17. Child exhibiting signs of possible drug overdose or adverse reaction. Non-responsive." Victoria's face goes white. "This is absolutely ridiculous. I'm his legal guardian. I have a flight to catch. You have no authority to—" "We have every authority, ma'am. This is a potential medical emergency involving a minor." The second officer gently but firmly takes Lily from Victoria's arms. The 4-year-old doesn't wake, doesn't stir, doesn't respond to being moved from one person to another. "You're not boarding this aircraft until medical personnel clear these children as safe to travel. Subscribe now." The truth finally breaks through. Paramedics arrive with equipment and urgent efficiency. A team of 3 pushing a gurney through the crowd. The lead paramedic kneels beside James, checking pupils, pulse, breathing. Pulls out diagnostic equipment. Takes vital signs with practiced speed. Grace watches from behind the security cordon, hands pressed against her mouth, tears streaming down her face. She did this. She stopped the plane. She made people look. Whether she saved the children or destroyed herself doesn't matter anymore. Someone is finally paying attention. The paramedic looks up at the security officer with an expression Grace recognizes from medical dramas, grim professional concern that means bad news is coming. "This child has been given a significant dose of a sedative. Respiratory rate is depressed. Heart rate is low. Pupils are non-reactive. This isn't exhaustion. This is pharmaceutical sedation. Possibly benzodiazepines or similar central nervous system depressants. We need to transport immediately." The terminal goes silent. Even the background announcements seem to pause. Everyone is watching now. Everyone is recording. The truth is out in the open where Victoria can't contain it. "I gave him motion sickness medication," Victoria insists, but her voice wavers. "Children's drama mean. The prescription is in my bag. This is all a terrible misunderstanding. The nanny, that woman, she's unstable. She was fired for... Ma'am, show me the prescription. The paramedic's tone allows no argument. Victoria produces a pill bottle from her designer handbag, hands it to the paramedic with trembling fingers. He examines the label, then pulls out his phone and makes a call. Grace can hear him speaking to someone, a pharmacy maybe, or a medical database. His expression darkens with each passing second. 3 minutes later, he ends the call and turns to the security officers with barely contained anger. The prescribing physician listed on this medication doesn't exist. No medical license under that name in any state. The DEA number is fake, doesn't match the format for legitimate physician identifiers. Someone fabricated this prescription. The security officer's hand moves to his radio again. Need police backup at Gate 17. Possible child endangerment and prescription fraud situation. Victoria's facade shatters completely. She lunges for her bag, reaching for her phone, for evidence, for something to support her story, but the security officer catches her wrist. Ma'am, I need you to step back and remain calm. You don't understand. That woman... Victoria points at Grace with her free hand. She's illegal. She's undocumented. She was fired this morning for trying to interfere with my custody. She's making all of this up because she's obsessed with the children. She's the danger here, not me. Like and subscribe before you see how this father saves his hero. The police arrive. 3 uniformed officers moving through the crowd with authority. Questions fly. Victoria produces her custody documents again, waving them like shields. Grace provides her phone, showing officers the photographs she took of Victoria's computer screen, the research on boarding schools, the pattern of increased sedation over the past 2 weeks. One officer examines Grace's documentation, while another takes Victoria's statement. The third coordinates with the paramedics, who are now checking Lily's vitals and preparing both children for transport. Ms. Williams, the officer examining her phone says, these photographs show evidence of premeditation, research on international boarding schools, calculations of trust fund values, and you're saying you observed this woman administering medication to these children without medical oversight? Yes, sir. For 2 weeks. I documented everything I could. I was fired this morning when she suspected I was paying too much attention. And your immigration status? Grace's heart stops. Here it comes. The truth that ends everything. My visa expired 16 months ago. I'm undocumented. The officer's expression doesn't change. But you called this in anyway, knowing you'd be exposing yourself to deportation. Those babies were being poisoned. Someone had to stop it. The officer looks at her for a long moment, then nods slowly. Wait here. He walks to the other officers. They huddle together, speaking in low tones Grace can't hear. Victoria sees them looking at her documentation and erupts. She's illegal! She's a criminal! You're taking the word of an undocumented immigrant over a United States citizen with legal custody? This is insane! One of the officers turns to her, voice flat and professional. Ma'am, the immigration status of a witness doesn't invalidate evidence of child endangerment. These children are exhibiting signs of dangerous sedation. The prescription is fraudulent. You're coming with us for questioning. I'm not going anywhere. I have a flight. I have rights. You can't. Ma'am, you can come voluntarily, or we can detain you. Your choice. Victoria tries to run, tries to push past the officers toward the exit. They stop her easily, professionally, without drama. Within seconds, she's in handcuffs, rights being read, protests ignored. Grace watches paramedics lift James onto a gurney, strap him in, start an IV line. Lily remains unconscious in another paramedic's arms, head lolling against his shoulder. Both children are being wheeled toward the ambulance bay. away from the plane, away from Victoria, away from the future she planned for them. Safe. For now. Grace's legs give out. She sits hard on a nearby bench, adrenaline draining, reality crashing in. She saved them, but she also destroyed herself. Because even as police lead Victoria away in handcuffs, Grace knows what comes next. Immigration enforcement, detention, deportation proceedings, the end of everything she built here. Her phone buzzes. Text from Marcus. "Where are you? What happened? Grace, tell me they're safe." Grace types back with shaking hands. "Hospital. Children are being transported. Victoria's arrested. But immigration knows about me now. I'm finished." She hits send and waits for the inevitable. Waits for ICE agents to arrive. Waits for handcuffs and detention centers and one-way flights to Honduras where her mother lies dying in a hospital bed they can't afford. Instead, what arrives is Marcus Ashford himself, dressed in a suit that costs more than Grace makes in a year, flanked by 2 lawyers who move through the terminal like they own it. Which, Grace realizes numbly, they might. He spots Grace and moves toward her with single-minded purpose, ignoring the police officers trying to brief him, ignoring the gate agents trying to apologize, ignoring everything except the woman who saved his children. "Grace." His voice breaks on her name. He sits beside her on the bench, this billionaire in his expensive suit, and takes her hands in his. "Thank you. Thank you for being brave when I couldn't be. Thank you for standing up when everyone else looked away. Mr. Ashford, I'm being deported. Victoria told them I'm undocumented. Immigration enforcement is coming." "No." Marcus's voice carries absolute certainty. "You're not. Kent." He gestures to one of his lawyers. "File everything we discussed. Immigration status under witness protection, material witness in a federal case, humanitarian protection, whatever applies." "Grace Williams is under my legal protection as of this moment." The lawyer nods, already typing on his phone with practiced efficiency. "You can't stop immigration enforcement," Grace whispers. Marcus turns to look at her fully, and Grace sees something in his eyes she's never seen before. Not in her years of cleaning houses for wealthy families who never learned her name. She sees respect, gratitude, recognition. "Watch me." The pediatric intensive care unit smells like antiseptic in desperation. Marcus sits in a plastic chair beside James's bed, watching monitors display numbers he doesn't understand, but knows are important. Heart rate, oxygen saturation, respiratory rate. Each beep confirms his son is still breathing. Each pause between beeps feels like the universe holding its breath. James lies motionless under white hospital sheets, an IV line running into his small arm, oxygen cannula beneath his nose. His face carries the peaceful expression of sleep, but this isn't sleep. This is sedation so deep, the doctors used words like dangerously suppressed and critical levels, and we're doing everything we can. Marcus holds his son's hand, tiny fingers wrapped in his larger ones, and prays to a God he stopped believing in when cancer took his wife. He bargains. He begs. He promises to be better, do better, never choose work over presence again if James just opens his eyes. The door opens. Grace enters carrying 2 cups of terrible hospital coffee. She hands one to Marcus without a word and takes the chair on the other side of James's bed. They sit in shared silence. 2 people who barely know each other united by the fragile life between them. "Any change?" Grace asks quietly. Marcus shakes his head. "Doctor came by an hour ago. They're administering flumazenol to reverse the benzodiazepines in his system, but the dose Victoria gave him was so high." His voice breaks. He can't finish the sentence. Grace finishes it for him. "They don't know if there will be permanent damage. Brain damage, respiratory failure, cardiac complications. Marcus recites the list of horrors the doctor cataloged. All from medication she gave him to make him compliant, to make him easier to control, to make him disappear. Like and subscribe. This father's fight isn't over yet. Where's Lily? Down the hall, different room. She's conscious now, responding to stimulus. They think she got a lower dose. Marcus's hands tighten around the coffee cup. Because James fought her. Grace, the nurses said he had defensive bruising on his arms. Fresh, from this morning. He fought Victoria when she tried to give him the medication, so she forced it. Held him down and forced it. Grace closes her eyes against tears. He tried to protect himself. He's 5 years old. He shouldn't have to protect himself from the woman who promised to love him. They fall back into silence. Machines beep. Nurses pass in the hallway. Somewhere down the corridor, another child cries. The sounds of a pediatric ward where children suffer and parents break, and medicine tries to fix what evil has broken. Marcus's phone buzzes. Text from his lawyer, Kent. Victoria formally charged with child endangerment, prescription fraud, and attempted kidnapping. Judge denied bail. She's not getting out. Marcus should feel relief, victory, justice. Instead, he feels nothing but the weight of his son's hand in his and the absence of his son's voice saying, "Daddy." What happens now? Grace asks. With Victoria? She goes to trial. Kent says, with the evidence you gathered and the medical reports, conviction is certain. She'll serve years. Marcus stares at his unconscious son. But that doesn't fix this. That doesn't undo what she did. What about the custody case? Emergency hearing is scheduled for tomorrow. Judge Hendricks is expediting everything given the circumstances. Kent says it's a formality at this point. Victoria's custody is obviously revoked. But James and Lily will be under state supervision until the court confirms I'm fit. You are fit. Am I? Marcus looks at Grace with haunted eyes. I chose work over them for years. I let a monster into their lives because I was too broken to see clearly. I let her drug them, traumatize them, nearly kill them. What kind of father does that make me? Subscribe now before you see what love really means. The kind who's here now, Grace says firmly. The kind who fought when it mattered. The kind who hired investigators and lawyers and did everything possible to save them. The kind sitting in this hospital room holding his son's hand instead of running away from the guilt. You're not perfect, Mr. Ashford, but you're present, and that's what they need. The words hit Marcus like absolution he doesn't deserve, but desperately needs. He opens his mouth to respond when James's fingers twitch in his hand. Marcus freezes. Did you see that? His hand moved. They both lean forward. James's eyelids flutter. His breathing pattern changes. The monitors beep faster. Marcus presses the call button for the nurse, never taking his eyes off his son's face. James, can you hear me? It's Daddy. I'm right here. James's eyes open slowly, unfocused, confused, struggling against the fog of medication still in his system. His gaze wanders across the ceiling, the machines, the IV line, before finally landing on Marcus's face. Recognition sparks. His mouth moves. No sound comes out. Don't try to talk, Marcus says through tears. Just breathe. You're safe. You're in the hospital. You're going to be okay. A nurse rushes in, checks monitors, examines pupils, asks James questions he can barely process. Can you squeeze my hand? Can you follow this light? Do you know where you are? James manages weak responses, hand squeezes, eye tracking, a whispered hospital that sounds like victory. The nurse smiles. Welcome back, sweetheart. You gave everyone quite a scare. She turns to Marcus. This is excellent. Consciousness is the first major hurdle. I'll page the doctor. He'll want to run cognitive assessments, but this is very encouraging. She leaves. Marcus collapses forward, forehead resting against his son's bed rail, shoulders shaking with sobs he's held back for hours. Grace reaches across and squeezes his shoulder. Silent support from someone who understands that relief and guilt can coexist in the same moment. James's small voice breaks through Marcus's tears. Daddy? Marcus looks up. His son's eyes are clearer now, more focused, scared. I'm here, buddy. I'm right here. Where's the bad lady? The question stops Marcus's heart. James remembers. 5 years old, and he remembers being held down, being forced to swallow pills, being rendered helpless. She's gone. She can't hurt you anymore, I promise. Where's Lily? She's down the hall. She's okay. She woke up before you did. She's going to be so happy you're awake. James's eyes start to close again, the medication still dragging him down. But before he slips back into sleep, he whispers 3 words that break and remake Marcus simultaneously. Don't leave again. Never, Marcus promises. I'm never leaving again. Like and subscribe. This family's healing has just begun. James falls back into real sleep this time. Natural. Healing rest instead of pharmaceutical unconsciousness. Marcus watches his chest rise and fall with steady breaths that no longer require mechanical assistance. Grace stands. I should check on Lily. Let her know James is awake. Grace. Marcus stops her at the door. Thank you for everything. For caring when you didn't have to. For sacrificing everything you had. For being the kind of person who does what's right even when it costs everything. Those babies deserve someone fighting for them. So do you. Kent is working on your immigration status. He says with your testimony in Victoria's case and your role in preventing the kidnapping, we can petition for protected status, possibly humanitarian asylum. You're not going back to Honduras, not while I have anything to say about it. Grace's eyes fill with tears. You don't have to. Yes, I do. You saved my children's lives. Let me save yours. She nods, unable to speak, and leaves to check on Lily. Marcus returns to his vigil beside James's bed, holding his son's hand, watching him breathe, counting each moment as a gift he'll never take for granted again. Hours pass. Nurses check vitals. Doctors run tests. James wakes periodically, growing stronger each time. By evening, he's able to sit up, drink water, answer questions about his name and age and what happened. He remembers everything, the pills, Victoria's hands holding him down, the sensation of the world going fuzzy and dark, waking up unable to move or speak, trapped in his own body while being dragged through an airport. The trauma will require therapy, years of it probably. But he's alive, conscious, healing. Marcus's phone rings. Kent. Judge Hendricks granted emergency custody. As of right now, you have full temporary custody of both children pending the formal hearing next week. But Marcus, that's just a formality. Victoria's arrested, charged, and held without bail. You're getting your children back. Marcus looks at James, sleeping peacefully, at the door where Lily waits down the hall, at the future that almost didn't exist. He thinks of Grace's courage, of his own transformation from absent father to present one, of the lessons learned through nearly losing everything. When can I take them home? Doctors want to keep James for observation another 48 hours. Lily can be discharged tomorrow. But Marcus, when you do take them home, make sure it's to a place where they'll always know their father is present. Not just physically, emotionally. Really there. I will be, Marcus promises. I am. He ends the call and returns to James's bedside. His son's eyes open again, clearer now, more alert. He looks at Marcus with an expression that holds fear and hope and the tentative trust of a child who's been hurt, but still wants to believe in safety. "Daddy, are you really staying?" Marcus takes his son's hand. "I'm really staying. No more trips, no more boardrooms, no more choosing anything over you and Lily. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." James's small fingers tighten around his father's. "Promise?" "I promise." Outside the hospital window, the sun sets over a city that kept moving while Marcus's world stopped. Tomorrow he'll start rebuilding. Not an empire, but a family. Not wealth, but presence. Not success, but love. Tonight, he sits with his son and counts breaths and thanks God and grace and second chances he doesn't deserve but will spend the rest of his life earning. James falls asleep smiling. Marcus stays awake watching over him, a father who finally understands that the greatest fortune isn't counted in dollars, but in the trust of a 5-year-old's hand holding tight even in sleep. 6 months after the airport, Marcus Ashford kneels on the concrete floor of a modest 2-car garage, teaching his 5-year-old son how to change a tire. Not because the world demands it, because James asked. "Loosen it counterclockwise, buddy. See? Left to loosen, right to tighten." James grips the lug wrench with both small hands, tongue poking out in concentration. The gesture is so much like his late mother that Marcus has to look away for a moment, blinking against the sting of bittersweet memory. "I did it, Daddy! It's moving!" "You're doing great. Keep going." The garage smells of motor oil and sawdust and the simple satisfaction of working with your hands. Outside, autumn leaves scatter across a lawn that needs raking. Inside, a father teaches his son something his own father never taught him. That presence matters more than profit, that time is the only currency that truly counts. This house, modest, 4 bedrooms, ordinary neighborhood, cost less than the monthly maintenance on the estate Marcus sold. No infinity pool, no tennis courts, no staff quarters. Just enough space for 2 children, 1 nanny who became family, and a father learning that smaller can mean richer in the ways that matter. The kitchen door opens. Grace emerges carrying a pitcher of lemonade, and Lily trailing behind her with paper cups stacked precariously in her 4-year-old hands. "Snack break," Grace announces. "And Lily made cookies." "Well, she supervised while I made cookies." "Same thing." Lily's face lights up with pride. "I put the chocolate chips in, Daddy. Grace let me use the big spoon." Marcus washes his hands at the garage sink, lifts Lily onto his hip, and accepts the cookie she offers with the solemnity of receiving communion. "Best cookie I've ever tasted." "You didn't even try it yet." "Don't need to. You made it. That makes it the best." Like and subscribe. Watch how love rebuilds what wealth destroyed. They settle on the back patio. No sweeping views, just a fence that needs painting and a swing set Marcus assembled himself. Incorrectly the first time. Correctly the second. The mistakes felt more honest than perfection ever did. James devours 3 cookies and asks for a 4th. Appetite restored after months of therapy and patience, and mornings waking up to a father who's always there. Lily nibbles hers slowly, still rebuilding trust in food that isn't laced with sedatives, but getting stronger every day. Grace sits with them, no longer hired help, but the woman who risked everything, and stayed to help pick up the pieces. Her mother lives 10 minutes away in an apartment Marcus quietly arranged, receiving medical treatment that's slowly winning the battle against illness. Grace visits her daily. returns each evening to the children who need her and the makeshift family that claimed her as their own. "Mr. Morrison called," Grace says quietly, using Marcus's lawyer's name instead of discussing Victoria in front of the children. "The court date is final, next month." Marcus nods. Victoria Chase sits in county jail awaiting trial on charges that will keep her locked away for decades. He doesn't feel triumph about it, doesn't feel satisfaction, just tired relief that she can't poison anyone else's children while she's behind bars. "Daddy, can we finish the tire?" James pulls at his sleeve. "After you digest. Racing back to work on a stomach full of cookies is how mechanics get sick. You're not a real mechanic, you own the shop. I'm a mechanic who owns the shop. Different thing." Marcus sold his empire, kept one small automotive repair business 3 miles from home, shows up every morning in coveralls. Works alongside Raymond and Carlos and the other men who taught him what labor and presence actually mean. Comes home every evening smelling of oil and honest work. The money from the sale sits in trusts for James and Lily, enough to secure their futures without drowning them in wealth that breeds entitlement, enough for college and weddings and starting their own families someday, not enough to make them think money solves everything. Because Marcus learned that lesson the hardest way possible. Money bought lawyers who got his children back. But money didn't save them. Grace did. Courage did. Love did. Subscribe now before you see what fortune really means. That evening, Marcus performs the bedtime ritual he missed for years. Bath time for Lily, bubbles and rubber ducks and songs about wheels on buses. Story time for James. 3 books instead of 1 because negotiations happen when you're 5 and you've learned your father can't say no. "Daddy," James asks as Marcus tucks the blanket around him, "are we poor now?" Marcus sits on the edge of the bed. "What makes you ask that?" "Lucas at school said his dad has 4 cars and a pool. We only have 2 cars. And no pool." "Do you feel poor?" James considers this with the seriousness of childhood philosophy. "No, I have my bike and my toys and you come home every day. Lucas's dad is gone a lot." "Then you're richer than Lucas." "How?" "Because wealth isn't counted in cars or pools, buddy. It's counted in people who love you and show up. You have me, you have Lily, you have Grace. We're all here. That's not poor. That's everything." James seems satisfied with this answer. "Can we work on the tire again tomorrow?" "Absolutely. Every day after school if you want." "Cool?" James's eyes start to close. "I love you, Daddy." The words pierce Marcus's chest. Sweet agony of receiving what he didn't earn, but gets to keep anyway. "I love you too, buddy. More than all the cars and pools in the world." He stays until James's breathing evens into sleep, then moves to Lily's room. She's already drowsy, clutching the stuffed rabbit that's accompanied her through nightmares and healing. "Daddy, will you still be here tomorrow?" The question breaks his heart every time she asks. Trust rebuilding itself one morning at a time. "I'll be here tomorrow, and the next day, and every day after that. Promise?" "I promise." Lily's eyes close. Marcus watches her for a long moment. This small person he nearly lost. Breathing peacefully in a room decorated with her own drawings instead of expensive art. Healing, growing, learning that fathers can be counted on. Downstairs, Grace has made tea. They sit in the small living room that holds more warmth than the estate's grand parlor ever did. 2 people bound by trauma and triumph, sitting in comfortable silence that needs no words. "Your mother's scan came back clear," Marcus says. "Kent called while you were putting Lily down. The treatment worked. She's in remission." Grace's hand flies to her mouth. Tears spill over. She's going to be okay? According to the doctors, yes. Grace breaks down completely, sobbing with relief and gratitude, and the weight of fear finally lifted. Marcus sits beside her, offering the same silent support she gave him in hospital waiting rooms and courtrooms and dark moments when healing felt impossible. "Thank you," she whispers when she can speak, "for saving her, for saving all of us. You saved us first. We saved each other." The truth of it settles between them, two broken people who stumbled into each other's lives and rebuilt something stronger than what broke. Like and subscribe. This is what redemption looks like. Marcus's phone buzzes. Text from Kent. "Victoria's lawyer attempting plea bargain. Prosecution declined. She's going to trial. Conviction is certain." Marcus deletes the message. Victoria belongs to the past, a cautionary tale about what happens when people see children as commodities instead of souls. She'll face justice. The children will heal. Life moves forward. "I had a thought," Grace says, composure returning, "about the future. Tell me. Your children need stability, consistency. They need to know the people they love aren't going to disappear." She pauses, gathering courage. "I'd like to adopt them, not replace their mother, never that, but legal adoption. So they know I'm permanent. So if anything ever happened to you, they'd still have family." Marcus stares at her. This woman who entered their lives as Victoria's victim and became their salvation is asking to legally become his children's mother. "Grace, think about it. No rush. Just, they've lost enough. I want them to know I'm choosing them. Forever." Marcus finds he can't speak around the emotion closing his throat, can only nod, can only recognize that sometimes the family you build is stronger than the one you're born into. Upstairs, a small voice calls out, "Daddy, I had a bad dream." James. Marcus takes the stairs two at a time, enters his son's room, gathers him close. "Tell me about it." "The bad lady came back. She had the medicine." "The bad lady is in jail. She can't come back. She can't hurt you. I won't let her." "Promise?" "I promise. Want me to stay until you fall back asleep?" James nods against his chest. Marcus settles into the chair beside the bed, the vigil he keeps whenever nightmares come. Watching his son's breathing slow, watching fear release its grip, watching healing happen in increments measured by peaceful sleep instead of terror. Grace appears in the doorway, checking on the noise, sees Marcus keeping watch. Mouths, "I've got Lily," and disappears. 2 hours later, both children sleep soundly. Marcus returns downstairs to find Grace has dozed off on the couch, teacup cooling on the table. He covers her with a blanket. This warrior who fought when no one else would. This woman who saw children in danger and chose courage over safety. He moves to the window overlooking their modest yard. Thinks about the estate sitting empty on the market. The empire he built and dismantled. The years wasted chasing wealth that couldn't save anyone. His phone buzzes one final time. Text from Raymond at the shop. "Carlos is teaching his grandson to change oil tomorrow. Thought James might like to watch? Kids learning together and all?" Marcus smiles. Texts back. He'd love that. "See you at 9. This is the inheritance that matters. Not trust funds or stock portfolios or real estate empires, but the knowledge that your father shows up, that love is measured in presence, that the richest life is built from ordinary moments stitched together with extraordinary care." Marcus Ashford, former billionaire, current mechanic, forever father, stands in his modest living room watching autumn leaves fall outside. Upstairs, 2 children sleep without fear. On the couch, The woman who saved them dreams peacefully. In the garage, an old tire waits to teach tomorrow's lesson. He has everything, not because he's wealthy, because he's present. And somewhere in heaven, his late wife Sarah smiles, finally able to rest, knowing her children are held by a father who learned too late, but learned completely that money is nothing and love is everything. The house settles into nighttime quiet. Marcus checks on the children one final time. James clutching his blanket, Lily hugging her rabbit. Both safe, both healing, both his in the ways that matter. He returns downstairs, covers Grace with another blanket against the autumn chill, and sits in the chair his late wife used to love. Pulls out his phone and opens the photo album. Pictures of James learning to ride a bike, Marcus running alongside, hand on the seat, refusing to let go until his son was ready. Lily's first day of preschool, Marcus walking her to the door, staying until she waved goodbye without tears. Grace's citizenship ceremony, all four of them holding the small American flag she received, family in every way that counts. Moments, not monuments, presence, not presents. This is the fortune Marcus built after losing everything. The wealth measured in bedtime stories and tire changes and small hands that reach for his without hesitation. He closes the album, checks the locks, turns off the lights, climbs the stairs to his own room. Tomorrow he'll wake before dawn, make breakfast for children who need routine, drive to a shop where he works with his hands instead of commanding from boardrooms. Come home to homework, help, and dinner, and the beautiful mundane rhythm of a life that matters. But tonight, he sleeps in a modest house that holds more riches than any mansion ever could. Because Marcus Ashford finally learned what his late wife tried to tell him before cancer silenced her voice. Wealth isn't what you own. It's who owns a place in your heart. And his heart, once empty despite being surrounded by everything, is finally, beautifully, impossibly full.